There is a lesser known translation of the Bible that I actually get asked about quite often. In fact, compared to major translations of the Bible, I actually get more comments and questions about this translation than a lot of the big ones. And that Bible translation is the Berean Standard Bible, or the BSB, which is published by Bible Hub. If you've never heard of Bible Hub, you can simply go to BibleHub.com. It's an online Bible study software that has tons of great resources inside of it. And a few years ago, they released their own, actually it's a tiered translation system. They released several different translations of the Bible, a literal translation, a more middle of the road translation. They have an interlinear translation. So they've got multiple different styles of translation, but then they've been publishing a physical copy of the Berean Standard Bible, which on the translation spectrum, I haven't done like a fine analysis of it, but they put it kind of in the middle of the translation spectrum, somewhere near the CSB, the Christian Standard Bible. So you can think CSB, BSB, they're going to be around the same. So they're going to be somewhere between formal and functional equivalents, kind of in that middle spot of the spectrum. So I've reviewed this before, actually, but it wasn't called the Berean Standard Bible back then. When it was originally released in 2021, it was called the Berean Study Bible. And at the time, I made a comment about how I thought that was a little bit confusing because it's actually not a study Bible where like half the page is notes about the context of what you're reading. That was just the name of the translation. And I think a lot of people had that same thought. And so they actually rebranded it as the Berean Standard Bible a year later when they reprinted it. So I didn't get a review copy in 2022 of the second edition when they rebranded it, but earlier this year, I did a fun project with Kale at Birdbound Bibles, and he sent me a couple of rebinds of that second edition copy. So I want to do something. I want to talk about the translation a little bit, but then I want to also walk you through the history of these different versions and show you how the newest one compares to the other ones, because while it has a couple of similarities, it's actually different in a couple of key ways, and I like those differences. Okay, so let's start with the old ones. So 2021, 2022, these are the exact same typesetting of the Bible. They're just a different trim size and a different paper weight. So if you go back to 2021, the original one was kind of a big, wide Bible. It opened up really, really wide like this. So it's 7 inches wide by 9 inches tall. It had a 10.5 point typeface, and it had this beautiful thin coat plus paper. The paper is really, really nice. It's a 10.5 point Cambria typeface. The Cambria typeface is one thing that has stayed consistent across all 3 editions of the Bible. This first one came on 45 GSM paper. So 7 by 9, 45 GSM paper, 10.5 point typeface. When they released the second edition, which all I have is this beautiful rebind from Kale at Birdbound, it's the same typesetting, so the page count is exactly the same. There's 1,504 pages, but it's slightly smaller. So they just shrank it down a little bit. It's 6.15 inches wide by 8.5 inches tall, and to shrink that down a little bit, it means that they had to drop it to a 9.5 point typeface. So you went from 10.5 point Cambria to 9.5 point Cambria, and then they made it a little bit thinner by putting it on 39 GSM paper. So the big differences are slightly smaller in the trim size, slightly smaller in the thickness because the paper was a little bit thinner, and then slightly smaller typeface. But the actual typesetting was exactly the same. Now, when I'm looking at these side by side, I can see a difference in the opacity of the paper, but I don't think it's crazy. Like the ghosting on this one is not significantly more than this one, even though it's 45 GSM versus 39 GSM. So it's very, very similar, just slightly smaller all the way around. The new one, they've actually completely tweaked the typesetting. They've gone with a new, totally different size. They've gone back to 45 GSM paper, but they've made the Bible the thinnest version yet by tweaking the page margins and retypesetting the Bible. So this one 6.5 inches wide, which is somewhere between the first two, but 9.5 inches tall. It's the tallest Bible yet. So there's going to be more text on a page because they have more space from top to bottom. They went back to the 45 GSM paper, but they were able to keep it thinner than the second edition, which only had 39 GSM paper because they got the page count down. So it doesn't match the pagination, what they call it, of the first two. It's actually 400 fewer pages. These two had 1,504 pages. This one only has 1,120 pages. So almost 400 full pages shorter simply by tweaking the typesetting, giving us a little bit of a larger type space to deal with, a little bit wider than the second edition, a little bit taller than the second edition. It does maintain the 9.5 point typeface. So I know some of you were hoping that you'd get a bigger typeface again. Maybe they'll do a large print at some point. So it's 9.5 point typeface, but it's thin and it's got that 45 GSM paper. This to me, it's only available right now in hardcover editions. There's several different colors. This is like the cobalt blue edition, I think is what they sent me. It's absolutely lovely. It's kind of got a woven textured pattern on it. It looks really, really nice. I would say that this is my favorite so far. It's a little bit taller, but I like how thin it is. It feels like, say, my favorite NKJV Bible. Well, it's not my favorite anymore if you saw my video about the NKJV Strident, but one of my favorite NKJV Bibles is the NKJV Large Print Thin Line Reference Bible from Thomas Nelson. It has that feel to it, more of like a hardcover version of that Bible. Tall, but thin. You know what I'm saying? So it's really, really great. Let me see my little side-by-side chart here. So there you can see all of them next to one another. First edition, second edition, third edition, and how they compare in terms of the font size, the page count, the paper thickness. Worth noting that they are all Smythe sewn bindings, so they're going to hold up pretty well. My only gripe about this is that the Cambria typeface doesn't really do much for me. Cambria is a font that you can get in Microsoft Word or things like that. It's a pretty common typeface, and so it looks a little bit basic to me. But at the same time, it's very readable, right? It's got a familiarity to it for that sense. So maybe I'm overthinking that a little bit, but it looks nice and it's well laid out. The design is really thoughtfully done. So that's the new edition hardcover. If you're a fan of the BSB, I will say this. It's not listed in those charts that I gave you, but also they have made some tweaks to the translation along the way. And so this is probably the differences between the original and the second edition were pretty small. They made a few tweaks. There's actually a significant number of changes. I think I only counted like maybe 10 books of the Bible where they didn't change at least something. What's cool about Bible Hub and the BSB team is that they have all of this available online. So I'll put the link in the video description where you can see every change that has been made to the text. And they're now telling me that this is what they would call a stable edition of the text. They're not planning to make as many significant changes to it in the future. So let's talk about that for a second. It's published by Bible Hub, and in 2023, they put the translation into the public domain, which means the BSB is out there. Anybody can take it. They can take this Bible. They can do whatever they want to it in terms of printing their own copies and things like that. They've made it available. If you're sitting there wondering, hey, Tim, well, if it's in the public domain, do you know any Bible publishers who are thinking about working with the BSB? That's an interesting question. Wouldn't it be interesting if a major Bible publisher did something with the BSB? That is a very interesting idea. Okay, so we have this public domain translation. We have the different tiers, like I said earlier. There's an interlinear, there's a literal, and there's this one that's kind of in the middle of the translation spectrum, which they've actually printed real physical copies of this Bible. All of this is available online for you to check out. You can read it online. You can see the differences. So I'll put everything in the video description if you go to bereanbible.com. I'll also note that they have developed what's called a majority text translation of the Bible. They're calling it, what are they calling it? The MSB? Yeah, the Majority Standard Bible. So Berean Standard Bible, now there's a Majority Standard Bible, and I know a lot of you are excited about that because if you're familiar with the textual traditions in the New Testament, you have The King James Version, the New King James Version, the MEV are based on what's called the Textus Receptus, or received text. Most of our modern translations, including the BSB, are based on something called the critical text. But then there's a third stream of New Testament textual criticism called the majority text, or the Byzantine type. And they've actually taken the Old Testament of the BSB and paired it with a New Testament based on the majority text that they're publishing as the Majority Standard Bible. And again, they're putting this in the public domain. They're letting people use it. It's really cool of the Bible Hub to do that. It's a unique way to do Bible publishing and Bible translation work. And so you've got really good, solid editions, physical copies of the Bible. You've got all of this available online with lots of different tiers, and obviously the Bible Hub software itself online if you want to deep dive into the Bible and do Bible studies. It's really a cool project. It's unique. It's different. It's not like Thomas Nelson or Crossway or Holman Bibles, who are these big, huge companies with marketing teams, and they're going to blast it out there. And it's a much, much smaller project than that, which is why when people say, hey, do you think one of the questions I got recently was, hey, I did my top 10 translations of last year. And someone said, do you think the BSB will be able to break into the top 10? No, I don't. I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon, unless one of those major publishers that I just mentioned were to start producing the BSB at a higher rate because it's available in the public domain. But that doesn't mean that it's not an interesting translation project. In fact, whenever I do an update to my book, Bible Translations for Everyone, there's a chapter at the end where I talk about a lot of different translations. I didn't include the BSB in the book when I first released it, but when I do an update to the book, a second edition, I'll definitely include the BSB because I do think that it's an interesting project that is here to stay because so many people are aware of it and the way they've published it and putting it in the public domain and just the transparency all the way around and the uniqueness of that tiered system that they've done. It's a pretty interesting project. So if you haven't checked out the Berean Standard Bible, these Bibles are available on their website for $29.99. It's a solid little hardcover Bible printed in the US. I'll put a link in the video description to where you can order one of those. I'll also put all of the links that I've talked about to Bible Hub, to their website. You can read about the other translations, all of the change logs, everything like that. I'll put that in the video description. So head down there, click those links, check some things out. I'll also put some links to other videos on my channel that you might be interested in checking out. If you have any thoughts or questions, please share those in the comments. If you have been spending some time with the BSB, I would love to hear from you in the comments. Let us know why you like it, why you love it, what your favorite things about the BSB are. Share that in the comments. And if you have any questions about this project, you can drop those in the comments as well. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. If you enjoyed this video, then click the like button for me and definitely consider subscribing to my channel. And if you are already one of my subscribers, then I would love for you to consider becoming a channel member. That $2.99 a month really helps me out. It goes a long way to keep the lights on, literally, and to do some cool things with the channel. I've got a lot of really exciting ideas. So click the join button beneath any one of my videos or scroll down to that video description and click the link where it says join to become a channel member. Thank you to the folks at Bible Hub for sending this to me so that I could share it with you. And once again, thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.